Morning traders, hope you guys are having a great morning so far. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the top highest probability setups I'm going to be watching today. If you guys appreciate this content, please like, subscribe, comment. It's always greatly appreciated. But let's get into it. So the big levels I'm going to be watching on Apple today is going to be 189.78 to 191.70. If we can get a daily close above 191.70, then I'll be watching that 195 level. If we get a daily close below 189.78, I'm expecting to move back down to 187.47 in the next coming days. Pre-market, we're kind of still saying range bound. I'm not too excited yet, but it's looking good on Apple so far. Depending how we open, I might consider a gap fill trade on Apple, but I still want to see because there seems to be a little bit of hesitation. Microsoft has been absolutely killing it lately, but I'm going to be watching that gap fill at 382.70. If we end up retracing back down by market open, then I'll be taking off that gap fill. I won't be watching it too closely, but as you can tell, if we go over to the daily, so let's say hypothetically we open at 380, we'll say 385 we open at. If we open at 385, you can see how that would create a decent gap. So I would expect you move down there to check that gap, fill it, and then a push up. So that's definitely a very high probability setup, very limited amount of risk there. Plus you got a major support / resistance level at 383. So that's also going to be a big factor. But if we're like something like 50 cents away from that gap fill trade that I just suggested, come market open, I'm not going to be looking at that because it's not really high probability at that point. You'd be better off just to take the trade off the 383 level. On NVIDIA, what I'm going to be watching today on NVIDIA is going to be that 476.34 level and 490.28 level. Pre-market, we are currently at 482.25. So let's just say hypothetically we open at 482. That's going to put us right about here. So what I'm going to be watching on NVIDIA, if we continue to rally pre-market, I'll definitely watch that gap fill trade at yesterday's close at 478.21. But I'm more expecting, if we get down to that level, I would expect a check of 476.34 before pushing up higher. Or maybe we'll get a check of the gap and the support level. But in the last couple of days, price action has showed us that the 476.34 level is greatly respected. So I would expect a move in the next coming days to 490.28. Bears try to gain control, try to push us down. But I really do think that 490.28 is likely on the video. Meta, what I'm going to be watching on Meta, let's see how we're doing pre-market. So pre-market, we're up at 340.25. So let's call that 340. Let's just say hypothetically we open at 340. That's going to put us right about here. Not a major gap, but I mean gap nevertheless. But it's not a gap that I'm really interested in. But the big thing will be today is see if bulls can get some follow through. If we get a close above 341.89, then I expect a move to 348.59 in the next coming days. If we end up pushing down today, we might get let's just say hypothetically we get an inside candle on Meta, then I expect to move back down to 330.54. But given that most of the tech sector seems to be green this morning, I really do expect to get some follow through on Meta. On Amazon, what I'm going to be watching on Amazon is going to be that 145.89 to 149 range. Let's see how we're doing pre-market. So pre-market, we are at we'll just call that 148. Let's see where that puts us. So let's say hypothetically we open at 148. So I will watch that gap fill on Amazon if we continue to rally throughout the morning. If we come right back down and come close to that 147 level, then I won't be too interested in it. But 147.03 would be a gap fill on Amazon. If we get a daily close above 149.26, then I would expect to move to 153.86 in the next couple of weeks. If we get a close below 145.89 today, then I would expect a move back down to 143.74. But I'll be going over that in this afternoon's video as well. Tesla, the levels I'm going to be watching on Tesla is going to be that 246.72 gap fill. See how we're doing pre-market. So We are currently at 250, so hypothetically, let's just say we open at 250 today. That's going to put us right here. So I'd definitely watch at 246.72. Maybe we get a little bit of a push down in the early morning. It's also a major support level as well. As you can see from, let's see, when was that? 11:15's candle. That was a major support. So I would definitely watch for a check of that 246.72. And if I get into that trade, I'll probably end up taking it to 254. But I really do think that that gap fill trade will be very nice on Tesla. Google, what I'm going to be watching on Google, there's two gaps on Google that I'm watching. 132.09 is one of them, but obviously we would have a lot of work to do before we get to that level. But the main one I'm watching is 137.20. See how we're doing pre-market. So let's just say hypothetically we open up at 138. See where that puts us. So 138 will put us about there. I think it's a very high probability setup personally because you have a major support and a gap fill. So if we can check both of those and we get some decent volume behind it and we get a reversal candle, then I would definitely be interested in getting into calls there. I don't know what strike I would choose, but it would definitely be an interesting trade to play out. Maybe target the upper portion of this candle at 139. So that's what I'm going to be watching on Google. And then on SPY, the big levels I'm watching on SPY for today is there's still that gap fill at, what level was it? It's at 453, but it's also a major support level. So ideally, I'd look for a check on both of those before getting into that trade. But for today, what I'm going to be watching is at 454.93 gap fill. That would be, let's see here. Let's see if we end up opening at 457.20. That puts us right here. So yeah, I'd definitely watch that gap fill trade on SPY. There'll definitely be a high probability level to watch. Then on SPX, what that translates to is 45.54.89 on SPX. So that's what I'm going to be watching today on SPY. QQQ, I believe it's a very similar story. Let's see here. So 390.19 was to close. We're at 393 right now. So let's see where that puts us. So let's say we open at 393. It's going to put us right here, right around this area. So if we get a close above 393, especially on the hourly charts, that definitely will be a big catalyst. And I'll get in long on the Qs if that ends up happening. The same thing with SPY if we can hold 456. But I'm going to be watching that gap fill trade at 390.19 if the sellers start to take control at this level right here. And then on, let's see where that translates to on the NASDQ. So on the NASDQ, that level is going to be 14,281.76. That was yesterday's close on the NASDQ. Sometimes the gap fill trades confirm on the SPX or the NASDQ, and they won't confirm on the Qs or SPY. So that's why I like to watch the main indexes, but I'm sure you guys already know that. But hope you guys all have a good